Most people believe their biggest problem is discipline. They think they lack motivation, willpower, or the right environment. The real problem is much more subtle and much more dangerous. The real problem is negotiation. The silent conversation you have with yourself that slowly erodes every standard you set. Today we're going to expose the trap that causes people to keep restarting their lives over and over again. Most people believe they lack discipline. They blame willpower. They blame their environment. They blame timing. But the real culprit is negotiation. The internal conversation that quietly erodes every commitment you make to yourself. You don't fail because you lack ability. You fail because you negotiate with yourself about things that should never be negotiable. Every negotiation sounds reasonable in the moment. I'll start tomorrow. I'll do it later. Today doesn't count. But every concession compounds over time. Tomorrow becomes a moving target. Later becomes a graveyard for intentions. And the days you tell yourself don't count end up counting the most. Every negotiated exception weakens your standard. Here's the cycle that most people live inside. The negotiation loop. It starts with a thought. I should improve myself. I should train. I should build something meaningful. But instead of immediate action, negotiation begins. That negotiation leads to delay. Delay leads to restarting. Restarting leads to frustration. And eventually something much worse happens. Identity drift. You start believing the delay is who you are, instead of recognizing it as a behavior you repeat. Negotiation doesn't just cost you a single day. It destroys momentum. Momentum compounds faster than almost anything in life. But every negotiated exception interrupts that compounding effect. Progress slows, frustration grows, and eventually your identity weakens. You stop trusting your own commitments. High performers operate on a completely different cycle, the standard loop. Instead of negotiation, they rely on standards. The process becomes simple. Standards set, immediate action follows, execution builds momentum, momentum reinforces identity, and identity makes the next action easier. This is how consistency compounds. Motivation is a feeling. Feelings are unreliable. They change based on sleep, mood, stress, and circumstances. Standards are different. Standards are decisions. Motivation asks, how do I feel right now? Standards say, this is what we do. When something is a standard, there is nothing to debate. The internal conversation never begins. The decision was already made in advance. And that single change removes the biggest source of friction in most people's lives. Every principle you hold means nothing until it is acted upon. And action cannot begin while negotiation is still happening. The moment you stop arguing with yourself, everything changes. Execution begins when negotiation ends. Obey. Honor your standards without exception. Build. Execution compounds into identity and results. Lead. Because a person who masters themselves leads everything else. Execution turns principles into wealth. Stop negotiating. Start building.